This is page 1 of your semester exam review. Here's what it looks like, and we're going to start on the right side and just work from number 1 all the way to the end. Alright, so number 1, simplify the following expression. Alright, so you got all these exponents. It looks like a little bit of a power to power rule, and then after that we need to do product rule. Okay, so in my opinion, it's the easiest way to take care of the power to a power. Just write it all out, and then you just have product rule. Okay, so the very first thing, we want to take this x to the 0. Anything to the 0 power is going to be 1, and then if you raise 1 to the 4th power, it's still going to be 1. So we can just go ahead and cross that out, so then we don't have to worry about it. All right, and so everything in the parentheses here, we're going to rewrite 4 times, because all of that is being multiplied to itself 4 times. So we still have the 5 and the y to the 2nd, and we're going to rewrite that 4 times. So there's 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then after this, I'm going to go ahead and just do product rule, because that one's not a very hard one to remember. All you're going to do is you're going to add the exponents. Okay, so I'm going to just basically rewrite x to the 3rd, y to the 8th. Okay. Alright, so the very first thing you want to take care of is the coefficients, or the big numbers that are attached to the variables. And so the only one I see here is a 5. So we want to count up how many 5s do we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So because we have 4 all multiplying together, that is going to be 5 to the 4th power. And then I am going to do the x's first, just because they come first in the alphabet. And you see here, we only have 3 x's basically, x to the 3rd power, and there's nothing else to add to it, so that is just x to the 3rd. And then all of the y's, we got y to the 2, 2, 2, 2, and then the 8. Okay, so if you go ahead and add up all these together, you're going to have y to the 2, plus 2, plus 2, plus 1 more 2, and then the plus 8 at the end. And this just saves yourself some room on paper, so you don't have to write it all on expanded form. But if you were to write it on expanded form, you just write out 2y's here, all multiplied together, 2y's, 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 and then 8y's. And then you just, if you count them all up, you are going to have the same answer. All right, two more things we got to simplify. We got to simplify this 5 to the 4th power. What that is saying is 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Okay, so 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is 125. And then 125 times times 5 is going to be 625. So that's going to be 625. And then the x's stay the same, or the x value stays the same. And then the y is going to be 2 plus 2, which is 4, plus another 2, which is 6, plus another 2, which is 8, and then plus 8 is going to be 16. So here's your final answer, and I kind of did an expanded form mixed with a product rule. Like I said, in my opinion, at least expand the exponent on the outside. If you do not want to do that, then you can take this 4 and distribute it inside the parentheses to all the bases. The only thing that's wrong with that is sometimes you forget that this is 5 to the 4th power and not 5 times 4. Okay. All right, moving on to number 2. All right, this is a literal equation. We need to solve the equation for b. Okay, so something that might help you out is take this letter b here and then circle all the b's that are in your problem. In this case, there's only 1. Okay, so we just have to get all of this other junk over to the a. All right, there is a little shorter way to get rid of this fraction that I'm going to share with you. So when you have any fraction in your problem, to get rid of that fraction, you're just going to multiply the whole equation by whatever number that is on the bottom, or in other words, the denominator. So we're going to multiply the right side by 4. And if we do it to the right side, we do need to do that to the left side as well. Okay, so 4 times a, that is just going to be 4a. So you're left with 4a on the left. This is equal to, and then the 4 on the bottom, since we're dividing, cancels out with the 4 on the outside of the parentheses, which is multiplying. If you're multiplying by 4 and dividing by 4 at the same time, you just cancel those out. Okay, so we're just left with what is on top. So that is 5 times 7 plus b. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we are going to distribute that 5. You could divide by the 5 first, But then you're going to be left with one fraction with a whole number. So we want this all to be written as one fraction in the end. So what we're going to do is go ahead and distribute that 5 inside the parentheses. So you have a 4a is equal to, that's going to be 5 times 7 is 35. And then 5 times b is going to just be plus 5b. Okay? And getting everything else away from the b, we first got to take care of this 35. So we are going to subtract 35. So minus 35 and minus 35. Okay, on the left side, since we do have a 4a that has a variable, we cannot combine the 4a and the minus 35. So we have to leave that separate as a subtraction problem. And that is equal to, the 35's cancel out. And so now you're just left with 5b. Okay? And the last step here is to divide by 5 on both sides. So your final answer is going to be what is left on this left side. You got b is equal to 4a minus 35 all over 5. And yes, the 35 and the 5 do reduce, but I think most of the time you're going to see an answer as one fraction. So since the 4 and the 5 do not reduce, we want to go ahead and leave this as one fraction. All right, moving on to number 3. Another literal equation. This time we need to solve for x. So if you circle x in your problem, or in your question, then you go ahead and go to your equation and circle all of the x's. Okay, so you notice how we have the equal sign in the middle of the 13x and the 9x. So what we need to do is move the x's on the same side. The only way you do that is doing the opposite. So since 9x is smaller, I'm going to go ahead and move that one. So I will be going to subtract 9x since it is positive. So subtract 9x and subtract 9x on the left side. All right, so on the right side, the 9x's cancel out. On the left, you have 13x minus 9x. That is going to give you 4x. And you still have the minus 2y is equal to. Now you just have 5z on the right side. All right, very good. 2 more steps. First thing we need to do is get rid of this minus 2y to the other side, and then we're going to divide by 4. So in order to get rid of minus 2y, we need to do the opposite and add 2y to the left side, add 2y to the right side. Like so. So on the left, now you're just left with 4x. You got your equal sign. And we cannot combine the 5z and the 2y because they are not the same variable. And since y comes first in the alphabet, I'm going to write 2y first. And then I'm going to write plus 5z since 5z is positive. Okay. And the last step is to divide by this 4. So divide by 4. And we're going to divide this whole side by 4. Okay, so your final answer is going to look like, let's see here, different color. The 4's cancel out, so you got x by itself is equal to. And you notice how in this one here, the 2 and the 4, they will reduce to 1/2, but we want to keep it as one fraction. So we're going to rewrite this as 2y plus 5z over 4, or not rewrite it, basically just copy it down. So 2y plus 5z over 4. And that'll be your final answer. And like I said, most of the time you are going to see this as one fraction in your answer choices. But just be aware that the 2 and the 4, that can reduce to 1/2 y. And then you'll have a plus 5z over 4. Okay. Moving on. 2 more problems on this page. We got what inequality describes all the solutions? When you get a question like this, what you want to do is just solve for the x. Okay, so solve for the x term. The first thing you need to do is get rid of the parentheses by using the distributive property and multiply 5 to everything inside the parentheses. So we got a 5 times 3, that's going to give you 15. And then 5 times negative x will give you a minus 5x is greater than or equal to negative 4x plus 2. All right. And now we kind of got a similar problem to the one that we just did. We have an x on the left side of the inequality this time, and an x on the right side of the inequality. So we need to do something to get them on the same side. And notice here how we do have this. This kind of serves as an equal sign. It really is the same way you solve as an equal, except there is one rule that I'll get to at the end of this problem that you got to remember with inequalities. So let's go ahead and just keep the x's on the left side, because when you get to an answer, you're always going to usually have the x on the left side of your answer. All right, so we want to move this 4x to the other side by doing the opposite and adding 4x. So add 4x to both sides. And that's going to give you still have this 15. And then now you have a minus 1x, since negative 5x plus 4x is going to give you 1x. And once again, we don't need to put the 1. We can just leave that as x. This is greater than or equal to. Now you just have 2 on the right side. All right. And then 15 minus x is greater than or equal to 2. We got to get this 15 away from the x. So what we're going to do is we are going to subtract 15, since it is positive. And across, think of that as a barrier wall. So across there, just like that. On the left side, they cancel out. So you are left with negative x is greater than or equal to 2 minus 15 is going to give you negative 13. Okay. And then we got to take care of this negative x. All right, so since we have just the negative, remember there is an imaginary 1 here, or an invisible 1, not imaginary, an invisible 1. So we are going to be dividing by a negative 1 on both sides to get rid of the negative. Because we're not interested in what negative x is greater than, we are interested in what x is greater than or equal to. So on the right, or on the left side, though, negative 1s cancel out. So now you're just left with x. And this is the rule that I was talking about in the beginning of this problem. Since we divided by this negative, that means this sign, the inequality sign, is going to flip to the other side, or flip around, I mean. So now it's going to be x is less than or equal to. So that is one rule that you do need to remember, that it's really the only rule that's different about solving inequalities versus solving equations. All right, so a negative 13 divided by negative 1 is going to just give you positive 13. All right, and there will be your answer. This represents all of your answers or all of your, what the question said, what inequality represents all of the solutions. Well, any number that is less than or equal to 13 is part of the solution set. Okay. All right, moving on to number 5. This one, don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. When it says, if y is equal to negative 4 over 5x plus 6, what is the value of x when y is equal to negative 4? Just make y equals negative 4 and substitute that in for the y in the first equation, or in the equation. So we're going to rewrite this equation, but instead of writing y, we're going to write negative 4. So negative 4 is equal to negative 4 over 5x plus 6. Okay? Now you just want to solve for the x. All right. So what we have here is, first we need to get rid of this this positive 6 on the right side. We need to get rid of that to the left side of the equation. So we are going to do the opposite and subtract 6 on both sides. That is going to cross out the 6's there, and now you're left with negative 10 on the left is equal to negative 4 over 5x. All right. And what you want to do here now, actually let me go ahead and rewrite this up here so I have a little more room. So we do have negative 10 is equal to negative 4 over 5x. Very good. Okay. When you have a fraction, what you want to do is get rid of that fraction. And if you want to multiply by the reciprocal, you can. If you remember how to do that, basically you're going to be multiplying by negative 5 over 4. But what I tell all my students is to first multiply both sides by the bottom number. That'll get rid of the fraction, and then you can divide by the top. Okay, so first we're going to multiply by that denominator, which is a 5. So now you got 5 times negative 10 is going to be negative 50 is equal to, and notice how these 5's on the bottom cancels out with the 5 on the top, okay, or on the outside of parentheses. When you're multiplying by 5 and dividing by 5, those two numbers cancel out. And that leaves you with negative 4x on the right side. Okay, and then now you have one more step, and that is to divide by -4 on both sides. So -50 divided by -4 is going to give you a positive. All right, these negatives cancel out, and it can also reduce. If you divide both numbers by 2, you get 25 over 4. I'm sorry, not 25 over 4, 25 over 2. You got to divide the top and the bottom by 2. All right, and that is equal to your x. And there is your answer. So let me zoom out here. And there is all of our work there. Okay, so when y is equal to -4, x is equal to 25 over 2. You can change that to a decimal if you'd like, but just make sure you are able to translate between decimal and fraction, just in case the answer choice only has a decimal or only has a fraction. Okay, that completes page 1.